It is Sunday, the weekend of March 10th, and welcome to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. Let's look at the price action for the indexes last week. Starting with the NQ, what happened last week, Price?
Well, last week on the NQ, we had a contract change and a gap up, if you want to call it that. Not really, but sort of. On the NQ, we had a little bit of a pullback for the beginning part of the week, and then the contract shifted, and we printed up here on Thursday, and then came back down on Friday. Pretty significant look there. I'll take a quick look though. So it was just a quick all-time high, and then back down if you want to back adjust it. Either way, it's pretty valid. And if we see a return down here, I think we both agree, or even a little bit lower, I think we both agree it's still a really good look for up. This coming down here, we would need to regain these levels in here before we'd be able to go. So if we did come down, you'd be looking to see it regain, and then you'd be able to take a long right in this area, expecting higher highs. But for the time being, until it closes up here in this range, up above 18,460, we're going to be expecting to look a little lower on the NQ.
I mean, I think I see the same things. I do. It's kind of a large range, as you pointed out, right? Like that's like almost 200 points, but that's still, kind of if we take the back adjust off, this kind of line is like marked out the major level that we, had to try a few times to really kind of confidently get above. So I think that's kind of the most important level on the chart. I mean, it's a range, right? So it's somewhere in there really is going to end up being a good long on any retracements down there. But importantly, even though we did have this is about a 400 point swing intraday on Friday, which is really big. I mean, after making this high up here, coming back down another 400 points is a lot, but that doesn't actually signal that we've really lost anything yet. And until we kind of lose below, the 17,860 level, we haven't really lost anything that makes us think about, even on the 4-hour, to start looking about potentially seeing a bearish change to the chart structure. And then on the daily, I would say it's even lower, potentially. It's somewhere between there and 17,700. So still looking good for higher, even on these pullbacks. These are necessary, to kind of get the price action rolling back to the highs. You can't just keep going up forever. So we expect a bit of a pullback, but until we lose lower, we're still looking for new highs. I think it looks good for up. So yeah, I'm in agreement with you. Any differences on the S&P chart, the ES?
Not really. It's really quite the same look. The levels are a little bit different, but it's the same concepts. The level that was all-time high produced the low, all-time high again, new low, but it's all basically the same. I don't have much to add on
yeah, I mean, I think our levels are marked at essentially what is equivalently the same on the S&P. So it's kind of the same situation. It could come back down here, but we still expect higher until we lose lower. So yeah, not much to cover there. RTY, we've kind of been predicting this to break out and sort of start retesting this 2100 level. There really isn't any change other than we're starting to see those tests. So if I pop up to the weekly and we marked out this sort of short origin level here, we're finally starting to get consistent price action moving back up into this level. I think a couple of weeks ago we predicted, or maybe even last week, we predicted that this is likely going to happen. If we can break through here, we're going to make probably a pretty big move up here, and then end up, what we expect is that this range will, instead of acting as resistance, will end up being a major support level, and then we'll probably end up seeing all-time high somewhere after that. That's still pretty much on the table, and the price action this week really hasn't changed anything. We're just kind of grinding higher. So the only thing to really talk about on this chart is that I think that we're just going to have to see what happens this week. If we can keep breaking higher, it looks good for higher. If we start to fail, we'll have to go from there. But our idea of seeing higher is, we're just waiting to see if that plays out or not. What do you think? Anything I missed? Not a lot changed.
No, not a lot changed. Long at 2020, same thing as last week. I think looks good to me for higher, but any longs inside this week's price action looks really valid for me on a longer time frame.
Absolutely, completely agree. The 2020 level would be perfect for a rip through. Let's move on to gold. Gold actually had a really interesting week. Huge move, right? So we kind of had predicted that we wanted to see some breaks above this 2070 level, and we ended up getting that last week. And so now that we've kind of confirmed up here, we thought maybe we could come back down and test and then move higher, but they just ripped it through. So they touched our 2200 rather Fibonacci level, the 1.618 that we'd kind of pulled from previous failures. We can pop those up here, so around 2000 to the the reversal at the bottom here at 1680. So the 1.618 of that was actually 2200, and we were seeing that respected. What we could see now is, of course, we could continue to move higher, but what's more likely is we could see a big retracement down to sort of the high that broke out, where we tried to break out of a few times. This could, anywhere in this range could be used as support to then send us back up here and then actually move higher. But that remains to be seen. This is a huge move in a short amount of time on gold. So it's this retracement that we're discussing here could happen very quickly, or it could take a long period of time of consolidation. But that is something to expect. That is all to say that's one possibility. We could gain this level and then kind of come back and tag that and keep going. We just simply don't know yet. We don't have enough price history, so we'll have to see. But those are kind of my thoughts. What do you think, Price?
I think real similarly. I think that price coming down here to 2050, 2040 still looks really good for up. That doesn't mean we'll necessarily get all the way down there, but if it did, I'd still be looking for longs on a longer term basis.
Right. I mean, we've done a lot of gaining here, and now we've closed way up here, so there's no reason to start trying to look for shorts. Let's trade with the trend.
Right. You can really see what this looks like on the weekly here, and it really looks like it's going to...
I mean, it looks like it wants to keep going even higher.
Yeah.
Where's let's pull that real quick. Where's the next fib after the 1.618? I think it's like 2500 even.
Yeah,
that's crazy. That's a lot of ways up, and that's actually on the table if we gain that level. So we'll just have to see going forward. What do you think about the Dow? I mean, that one's a little different. It hasn't gone as choppy as some of the other charts, but recently seen some changes.
It had a similar gap up kind of situation, and it is pretty cool what we've got here with the yellow lines. We came down and kind of rejected that zone pretty exactly like we kind of predicted, and then it came down to the level here. And then what happened is they started gaining levels, and then the contract shift happened, and they immediately went to the other level we said we were expecting if we were able to gain this spot. So it's harder to see here because they gapped it up and then came down and used it as support and then went up to the level we expected to go to after gaining. But it all played out technically and properly. What do you think about that?
I mean, I see the exact same thing. I think that, the thing that is a little confusing about this chart is if you back adjust it, it kind of looks, it looks similar, like it used the level, but it doesn't look like a higher high or anything like that. But, we've talked about this in the past, that the back adjust becomes less reliable over time. So I think it's important to be aware of how the back adjust chart looks, but I think the non-adjusted chart is more reliable long term. So I like to think about this as truly being used as support, and we have, doesn't mean we can't come back down, but this is a gain to me, and we could see higher shortly. So kind of like the other charts, we could see lower, but we're still expecting higher. That's all I have to say about that.
Yep.
Cool.
Pretty similar look.
Oil, it tagged our level at 80. Did it again this week after doing so last week, so that's nice to see. We did kind of want a little bit more of a stronger continuation look, in my opinion, but this is still, we're still holding above the level to gain. We could briefly lose this. If we do, we want to see that regain and then retest and go again. We really don't want to see this kind of come back down, although we still could look good if we came to 75, 50-ish. That's not really a huge deal. But we really want to keep seeing this trend continue upward. So I think the maximum pain level would be about 74 here. I wouldn't want to see this lost, or I'd start kind of thinking about maybe losing the reversal trend at that point. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think we really don't want to lose 75, like you said right here. This yellow guy, and this one is the more local one. If we did come down here and start printing daily levels down here, I think we, like you said, would be looking to come all the way down back below 70 into the 60s.
Yeah, not a good look.
That'd be a very realistic possibility. But we did make a higher test here, a test that was on Friday, so that was the previous one. But that's why we had this bullish look to hold the highs and go. Now they're still doing that because it's still inside the local move that took it up, but it is a little sketchy looking. So we do like longs in this zone, expecting higher off of that test up above.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything to add. I think that until we lose those levels, we still expect higher, although those are possibilities. But this is kind of just what we're looking at now. We can leave that since that didn't play out. Let's go ahead and talk about the dollar. Big move down this week for the dollar. Definitely lost some levels that we wanted to see hold. We had kind of talked about we expected a move down to this failure, but it ended up ripping through it and even going below our long origin. So at this point, we definitely, if we're going to see higher, which we still haven't lost that, but we need to see regaining happen if this is any chance of playing out. So definitely need to regain above this level and then kind of, continue to stair step higher high, higher low, up back above. In my opinion, this 103.9 needs to be regained, and then again, 104.2. That's the failure that sent us down on the daily. That needs to be regained if we're going to have a chance of kind of testing up here at 105.8 like we've been talking about. If that didn't happen, we could see is maybe a move back up here and then a failure, losing these levels again, retesting, and then kind of going back down to these lows. And really at that point, I think we'd be talking about losing the reversal and potentially seeing lows, but that's all something that we're going to have to kind of see what happens going forward and actually look at the price action pretty closely. This is definitely going to be a chart to watch going forward. What do you think?
I agree with everything. That we do expect up, but if it continues down a little more, we expect lower lows. Right? So
yeah, I mean the long origin, losing the long origin, testing it again, and then failing again there would be confirmation of further downside. So that's kind of how I'm looking at it. That's kind of the major level on the chart. What are you thinking about the banks?
Well, they had a pretty good buyback here. Let's look at the 4 hour. They came down and didn't quite go below and make new lows below here. And you could say, well, yeah, they made new lows below here, but that's inside this swing. So we have this low that we've gained and we made this high, and we've just come back to the start of the swing here, the low that we gained. So it's a perfectly normal, valid pullback here. It's certainly was starting to get sketchy because if they close it down here, this turns into a short instead of what it was here, being a long opportunity to get up here to the level to gain. So I think we're expecting 30 or 53 and higher after that, off of this good hold here. And you can see how this idea here, this quick squiggle, they did put it a little bit lower, but it still stayed inside of the swing that produced the high there. So we drew this here, and if we'd have drawn it when it was here, we would have put it lower. But
that's okay. Yeah. I think we need to worry a bit. We don't have to worry so much about like, oh, we got the lines perfectly, and more like, hey, this idea played out, because this was, we had been talking about like this line needs to be regained to test up here, and this line needs to, if we're going to see lower, we need to, make a new low lower than this low. So we didn't make a new low lower than this low, than this low. So that means we gained and retested up here. That's kind of what we were expecting. Now we do have this line up here. I think that 50-50 at this point. We could see this come back down and then come up here to gain. This is the bigger level this was just us talking about how could we get back up here. Now that we've done this, we still have to regain this level, or it still could break down and move lower. If we can gain this, though, then we're back on the table to talk about, making it back to the high that we failed from back over here. Which is, what was that? In March of last year. So that is kind of the main level that we're looking at right now. And that's why we have that marked as the level to gain. So valid price action. Maybe we didn't get this perfectly, but this is doing what we expected to do to move back up. Just going to have to see if we can get closes above this week, or if we're going to come back down and use 48 as support to try to move higher. But, looks good for higher to me for now. We'll just have to see. Any other comments before we wrap up?
Nope, that's everything.
Okay, yeah, I do think that is everything. So thanks again for tuning in to the Trader Hub Weekly Market Review. If you like this kind of content, sub to the Hub and consider joining our Trader Hub Discord community server. You can find it using our link in the description. We'll see you next week.
Till next time.